Name's Ed Newton, 1993 graduate of Hardin Northern here. Um, Also a 25-year veteran of the Army Reserves.
Tell us about your family.
Family, four children, a 22-year-old girl, Kaylee, 18-year-old girl, Renee, which is a senior this year at Hardin Northern, 16-year-old boy, Wesley, which is a sophomore this year, and a 13-year-old boy, Riley, which is a seventh grader this year, and a beautiful wife, Sherry.
Why did you join the military?
Well, that's actually a funny story. Back in high school, Sherry and I dated for 3 out of the 4 years in high school, and I had graduated a year ahead of her, and I didn't really have direction back then. I was kind of waiting that year for her to graduate so we could, I could enter the workforce or whatever, and we could get married and start a family. Well, early that summer, she had got a hold of me and said, hey, I'm going to go away to college. I'm like, what? Going away to college? So I was like, all right. So we were in this little spat for, a couple weeks. And well, during that time frame at home, my phone rang and this is Sergeant First Class Wagner, Army Reserve recruiter. I said, yep, I'll do it. He said, excuse me? I said, yep, I'll do it. What do I got to do? And I was thinking, well, she's going to go to college. Well, I'm going to join the reserves. I'll show her. And that was how I got into the reserves.
What are your first memories of what it was like to get used to military life?
Well, military life, growing up around here, we did a lot of fun things, Hard Northern and the community. And I was just out for the social aspect of everything, had to have the friends, had to be doing the fun stuff. Kind of careless, if you will. Well, then life kind of smacked me in the face, shipped off to boot camp, basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I learned real quick that the world is not about always goofing off and having a good time. There are some times where you have to be accountable, and that's not a bad thing. It's a really good wake up call.
What years were you in the service again?
I joined in 1994 and I retired in 2019. Oh, I've been stationed a lot of places. Being a reservist every year, you're on. It used to be 2 weeks a year, but the joke today is you have 1 week in the month and 2 weeks a year off, and so you're always going places. For a week, two, three, a month, or 2 or 3 at a time. So I visited and been, probably 20, 25 different Army bases here in the States. And I've been in, I think, 7 different countries: Germany, Spain, Ireland, Kuwait, of course, Iraq, of course, Turkey, Canada, Mexico. And I'm probably missing a few, but that's, yeah, it'll get you around.
Are there any particular memories or stories you would like to share?
Oh man, there's so many memories, so many stories. I really don't know where to start on that one. I guess I could, just walk through what I did, and maybe a story will pop up. Initially, I joined as a generator mechanic, and I thought, these generators, I thought I can work on these things, Well, little did I know they were talking about big 200 kilowatt generators, mounted on semi trailers and things like that power, full base camps. All of your missiles, your Patriot missile systems, and all of those missiles are powered from generators. So, generator mechanic, you're really a sought after entity to the military. So I did that for the first couple years, and then I got my heavy wheel, where I worked on vehicles. I was a heavy wheel mechanic. Did that for another couple years, um, and then I joined the transportation side, and I became a driver. At that point, I'm a mechanic and a driver, so I was in maintenance for a while, and I was running recovery operations. Drove the Hemet Wrecker for 4 years. Then I got into a bag farm unit, which a bag farm is a big, probably 10-acre complex where you have these big fuel bags. They're all 250,000 or 500,000 gallons each. They're like it's similar to if you take a Ziploc bag, fill it half full of water, and lay it down. It's just a big bag, right? And that's what you pump bulk fuel into and take it out of. And that gets me up to the point of wartime. So me and Sherry are, at home. We're the night before we had just watched Ohio State beat Miami Hurricanes for the national championship in football. The following day was a Monday, and I had worked second shift, so we got up during the day and we were headed out the driveway, and this FedEx truck backs in front of us, so we can't get out. So I get out of the car, and this guy gets out, and he's got an envelope. And he walks up and says, "I think I got something for you." And I was like, "Well, okay." So I look at it on the way back to the car, and it's from the United States government. It's from the Department of the Army, and it was overnighted. And I thought, the Army don't overnight anything. It's too expensive or whatever. But so I popped it open, and inside were these involuntary transfer orders. I'd been involuntary transferred to a fuel hauling unit out of Springfield, Ohio. So I got with them, found out what's going on. It started out, yep, we're being mobilized for 1 month down to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And then after about a week, the story had changed to, okay, we're being mobilized to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for up to 365 days. So we start that process. So at that time, Sherry and I weren't married. So we kind of haphazardly planned this wedding, which ended up being a beautiful wedding. We got married on January 16th, and January 21st, 2003, 5 days after we got married, I left home and didn't see her for 14 months. And that was my first deployment to Iraq.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Okay, well that's interesting. I've had 2 tours in Iraq, so they differ kind of a lot on communication. The first tour, 03, March 03 to March 04, it was really nothing set up. So, I called Sherry from Kuwait the night before we went across the wire into Iraq, and that was in March of 03. Once we got there, there was no infrastructure set up, so there was no phones, no internet, nothing. So there was postal service being established. So I would write 2, 3, 4 letters a day and throw them in the box and be shipped. And Sherry and I, over that year, we learned a lot about each other, because I didn't call home again until November of 03. So in all those hundreds of letters that we wrote and that were crossing each other over the ocean, we found out that we were thinking of some of the same things at the same times, and we just realized how close we were by writing those letters, because it took about 2 to 3 weeks once you wrote a letter for the other end to get it.
What was the food like?
Oh, the food. Okay. In general military, when you're stateside and things like that, the food is really good. You got DFACs, chow halls everywhere. It's basically like a school cafeteria, but with way, way, way more options. You never go hungry. Now, getting into the wartime, 2003, of course, was a little different. We were rationed 2 MREs a day and 2 bottles of water a day, which they were big bottles of water. I think they were 2-liter bottles or something like that, 1-liter bottles. We ate MREs for the vast majority was all MREs for until August, when the place we were stationed opened up a DFAC. So we're talking, 4 or 5 months we would get our occasional good meals at the DFACs, because we traveled, we delivered bulk fuel all over Iraq. And we'd get to some of these bigger bases that already had DFACs, so we'd try to pop in line and get something to eat while we were there. But other than that, wartime was MREs, and you just get used to them. Okay, living conditions and supplies. First, I want to talk supplies. Again, I'm always going to revert back to 2003, because out of both of my tours, that was where I had felt the biggest hardships on about every aspect. So we're running a fleet of 70 or 80 trucking systems, right? Plus our gun trucks and maintenance crews and all that stuff. So there wasn't any infrastructure set up yet where you could get parts. So this truck, something would be wrong with that. So we would maybe strip some of these parts off of that truck to get this truck going, and then scab this truck together and build this. And our maintenance was terrific at doing that, making things work. We had things on trucks that weren't really designed for that truck system, but they made it work, and they worked great. Even in the beginning, with no up armor, with the IEDs going off, we would scab together. Like in Vietnam, what they did was they developed and invented the gun truck. They would take vehicles that were already blown up or whatever, disabled. They would cut parts off of it and weld parts to the other trucks to protect the gunners as they went down the road that protect the convoys. And that's kind of the same thing that happened in '03. A lot of that going on. Other supplies, we were transferring from the green BDUs to the desert tans. So there was a shortage because of the number of troops going to the Iraq War so quickly. So we were given 2 desert tan uniforms, and then we could wear our greens also. So for that first year, I went through the first year with 4 uniforms. And you talking in the heat, the severe heat, and just dirty and dusty and everything you're doing, and fuel all over you. I remember that I've got this little book that my mom gave me when I got deployed, and I kept track in it of every day of my deployment, what I was doing, this is and that. And there's entries in there, like, for instance, showers. I think I went on a 34-day streak without a shower because it just wasn't showers. You had bird baths. If you were lucky enough to get a hold of wet wipes, you just do a little bird bath and go on. And I remember one time, well, we slept on top of our tankers for the longest time. That was our bed, on top of 5,000 gallons of fuel in a war zone, which was quite fun. But I remember I didn't take my boots off for a little bit over a week. And I got the opportunity to take my boots off, took my boots off, and I was trying to peel my socks off, and the bottom of my feet were coming off with my sock. It was just horrendous, and because supplies, and back then, whatever we brought in our duffel bag is what we had. There was nowhere to buy stuff. There was nothing. So we went for a long time where we'd wear a pair of socks or underwear or something for a week or so, and then we would take them off and just bury them in the sand because you just couldn't do nothing. You just bury them, And then, a couple months into it, again, the mail started up, and we were starting to receive packages from home with supplies like that in them that helped a lot. So, oh yeah, well, there's a lot of ways to entertain yourself, and you got to remember, one, this was 2003. You were right on the beginning of cell phones, so even stateside, not many people had cell phones yet. Well, and over there was nobody, 0 people had cell phones. They were trying to get sat phones in, but those didn't come in until 04, 05, I think, sometime. But yeah, so you're sitting around in a group, and it's just like anywhere else. A bunch of people with some things in common and some things not in common. You just strike up conversation, and you learn about people and how things in the world are different than maybe what you are used to, and it broadens your mind a lot. So just conversation, football, any little thing, running around, building contraptions out of scrap stuff you find laying all over the place. Just anything you could do. Yeah, but it was good because you were learning about each other and about human beings in general, which I think is great. It's way better than 15 people sitting around, everybody in their own cell phone. You're communicating with other people.
What was it like coming back home?
Coming back home was a terrific feeling. Little scary feeling. I remember, like, again, '03, the only vehicles I were in were Army vehicles for that entire year. I didn't come home on leave or anything. So, I'm looking at 50 miles an hour and getting there slowly for the entire year. So I come home and we get back to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I climb in this van with my family, and they just go driving away, and I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa, It was kind of scary. It was like I was in a vehicle for the first time again. And then, of course, the crowds, when you're overseas and traveling through crowds and through traffic, you're always on defense and always expecting the worst, because you just have to prepare for that. And coming home, you might get in traffic or something, and you start to get a little tense. Being around people, I always liked being around crowds, but after the whole Iraq experience, I really don't I don't care for it so much anymore. In fact, when I came home the first time, my wife offered to buy me tickets to go see the Chicago Bears in Indianapolis play. I'm a huge Bears fan since I was fourth grade or so, and I actually turned them down. It was on my 30th birthday, and I turned them down because I didn't want to go to the stadium and be around the crowd. So yeah, it'll affect you. The game's still on TV. I could watch the game on TV.
So, what do you think young people today should know about serving your country?
First and foremost, your country needs you. Um, so many people over time say, "Well, I'll join if they need me." I mean, this war on terror. If your country don't need you now, they're never going to need you. This is as close as we're going to get to, World War II. Um, the battlefield is not the same anymore. Your big linear battles with hundreds of thousands of troops, and that's over. Your country needs you now. Um, Country needs you, and it's very, very rewarding. Again, like myself, um, I wasn't active duty. I was a reservist for 25 years, but I've got nearly 8 years of active duty time on that reserve time. So, being the advantage of being a reservist or National Guard is, I think of this a lot. When I got back from a mission, a stateside mission, I was down at, we were sending fuel from the battlefields of the Civil War to Langley for the F-22 Raptors. We were hauling them fuel. This mission came up, real world mission, where out of Oceana Naval Air Station in Virginia Beach, there was a fighter group and a carrier group training up, doing maneuvers 24/7, and the pipeline on the East Coast went down, and they couldn't get fuel, so we just happened to be there. We were like Johnny on the spot. We went and purged our tankers. Lieutenant Minnick, he was the platoon leader, and I was the platoon sergeant, so we were called upon to take our platoon to do this mission. So we had to purge our tankers of JP8, and we had to go to a different site and fill with JP5, Jet Petroleum 5, and haul to Oceana, which was really kind of weird, driving down Virginia Beach Boulevard in a fuel convoy, headed to, supply fuel to some of the top aircraft and fighter pilots on Earth, and completed that mission, stayed there that night, got a big tour of one of the hangars while we were there, some VIP access, I guess you could say. Got to see the aircraft real close and personal, got to sit in the seats and see the guns and all the systems and all that kind of thing. But anyway, again, being a reservist, I was at work that following week, and I'm thinking, here I am doing my job back home, my civilian job, and just last week I was on an emergency mission to supply some of the best fighters in the world with fuel they needed to go mobilize and deploy to the Persian Gulf. I mean, what better weekend job can you get than that? I mean, it's really amazing how your efforts in society are useful for your job and your family and stuff, but they're also very useful through the reserves or National Guard on a national scale. So it's really good, and I'm receiving college benefits for my family and myself. Again, good part-time job. A lot of satisfaction. Met thousands and thousands of people over the years. Still keep in contact with a lot of them. Yeah, very, very rewarding, and it gives you a sense of accomplishment. And I've always been an advocate of, I think every graduating senior should be required to fulfill at least a 1-year military contract, kind of to see if you like it or not. If you don't like it after that year, if you didn't think you were going to like it and you end up liking it, stay. I just kind of think it should be required to go through the basic training process and see how the military actually works. Because after basic training, it's a 9 to 5. You go in the morning, you do your job, you go home. sometimes there'll be times you're out in the field for 30 days doing exercises or whatever, but that's, that's few and, no, I don't want to say few and far between, but that's, it's not like that all the time. It's not like the movies you see. So it's a great job, great benefits, housing, set you up for life. I think everyone should do it. Another big thing is support from the family side. Um, the communities are really good. In fact, like what we're doing right now, gets the story out to the community. A lot of the community don't really understand how it all works or what happens. So yeah, just the support in the community, just support your local veterans and service members. I know we've got a number of service members from our community right now that are around the globe, so it's important to remember them. And believe me, they thank you for your support.